Blog Talk Radio. Welcome, beneficiaries. This is the House of Hidalgo radio show on the estate. This is Rick Hidalgo. I am also known, a.k.a. as Eugene Richard of the House of Hidalgo. Today is a wonderful day. I'm very excited about what we have coming on tonight. I want to get a couple things out of the way real quick here. I want to let you know where you can find us. You can find us on the web at blogtalkradio.com/South Dakota DP. That's double play DP. And you could also find us on the web at therockofsalem.org. That would be my official website. You can get to my blog and all that kind of stuff from that website. But tonight is a special night. I'm going to tell you why. I got a little bit of breaking news for you. The breaking news is this. You were wonderfully and fearfully made. That's right. You were wonderfully and fearfully made. Your Creator gave you the stuff. He gave you a spark of life, and that spark of life holds the highest jurisdiction on this planet. So nothing or no one can tell you what to do. You are self-governed because God made you that way. Now tonight, speaking of self-governing, I have an individual on my show tonight. His name is Dr. Paul Klebs. He is a naturopathic teacher, third generation. So he's been at this a while. And I know of him personally. We met some time back, and he's a great guy, and I'm just going to bring him on here. Dr. Klebs, are you with us?
Yes. Thanks, Rick.
No, I appreciate you coming on our show tonight. I let the people know beforehand that you're going to be speaking on the number one cause of dis-ease tonight. And so they're prepared and they're ready to hear what you got to say. You want to maybe start with what got you interested in natural healing or naturopath?
I was fortunate to be born into a family where we didn't have any access to medications or store-bought packaged, prepackaged. We grew everything from gardening. The only occasions that we bought something from town was ice cream for just when one of the siblings would have a birthday. We'd have a special treat, and that was about the total of it. My dad would once in a while buy peanut butter for himself. But the rest was our own homegrown. And of course, it was organic because that had not yet been invented. The word organic showed up later on the scene when people came up with the counterfeit.
Right.
And you had to have some way to identify the real. But my grandpa was quite an inspiration in my life. He was 82 years old when he passed away, and I was about 12 years old at the time. He was never sick in his life. He'd only visited a doctor once when he got some broken ribs by draft horses when he was trying to do some field work. And to see what he would do, and I wish I could have getting a little sharper, a little older, maybe I could have picked his brain more, but he taught my dad most everything. My dad was real good at taking us out in the woods, teaching us about herbs and natural. But my dad was ill his whole life until he was in his late 50s. He was never able to eat hardly anything. He was always frail, sick many times, and I couldn't quite understand why. Because of his suffering, what good natural health was. And I did rebel a little bit when I graduated from high school, enough to end up to damage my own health, but I can talk about that at another time. But my dad was never remotely healthy until in his 50s he had all of his mercury-filling, black, ugly teeth removed, and he had a mouthful of them. And then after that we actually got to see who our dad was supposed to be as far as his health and some of his vibrancy and all that. So I had that opposite ends, one real healthy, one real sick, both due to natural health. And it sort of plagued me to see, as I got older, that my siblings thought my dad was goofy, and they've been all sick. And I'm pretty much the only one that's followed the footsteps of my grandpa and my dad. And that has led me through so many experiences that cause passion. You don't do natural health for profit, you do it for a passion, because when you are a teacher, which comes, if you take the words, Latin words about teaching, and it sounds almost like doctor, doceo, to teach. A doctor is to be a teacher, and the teaching that I do today is direct results of being born in a family where we did not have Tylenol and aspirin, and so we were always looking for the herbal solution, the nutritional deficiency, and that's where my passions come from. I've never gotten away from it. I did cheat enough to get really sick, end up with 4 types of cancer in 1990. And I thought I could take my nutrition and drink soda pop, and boy, was I wrong. I had an addiction to a brand of soda pop, and I'd be happy to share that privately. But the truth of it is, soda pop is more acidic than battery acid, so it's no wonder that my body broke down, even though I was taking supplements and trying to eat somewhat healthy. So I had my wake-up call in 1990 with cancer of 4 types.
Wow. So, Dr. Klebs, you mentioned your title or your topic for tonight was the number one cause for dis-ease, and I think that's a really clever way of putting it, dis-ease. You want to go into that? What is the number one cause for dis-ease?
Yes. The word dis-ease matches up with a big word called homeostasis, meaning that is the body happy? And if it's not at ease, it is going to try to give you symptoms that are messengers, not to be damaged, but to be listened to. The number one foundational.
Oh, it looks like I lost him there. I'm going to try to dial him back in. Give me just a moment here. We were having problems with his audio anyhow. And now, all right, here we go. Hello, Dr. Klebs? All right. Yeah, I'm gonna dial again here and see if I can't get him back on the line. I may ask for his cell phone number. Okay. Yeah, we're definitely having problems getting him on here. What Dr. Klebs was intending to teach tonight was the number one cause for disease, and I know he and I had talked some about that. I'm going to try to call him again here. And I know he's real big on certain minerals that were deficient in our bodies. Let's see if I can get him now. Looks like it's actually ringing. Did I get you back?
Yes, it just died for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. If, you know, do you want to try to maybe call here with your cell phone? Call in here with your cell phone? Are you having problems with your landline?
It was just a fluke thing, I think.
Okay.
Can it go back on?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and continue from where you were. You were just starting to discuss the number one cause for disease.
Okay. Yes, the number one cause for disease, and let me know if the phone gives you more trouble, we'll try a different method. But the number one cause for disease, I'm totally convinced, is the lack of enough drinking water. We have so many names for symptoms for messengers, and I can probably use some of those names, but almost every time someone asks me a question, what to do for such and such, the number one answer would be for anybody to give them this part of the solution is they need to drink more water. Most Americans are so far behind that they can be gassing up at the gas station, hear the water sound or the liquid sound of gas coming into the gas tank, and have to run and use a restroom. Well, that's urgency. It's just one of the signals that tells you that you're very dehydrated. Same thing when you put your hands in water or go to wash your hands, all of a sudden you get the sudden urgency to go to the restroom. And people misread that and don't pay attention that the messenger is always there. Some of the things that have names to them that are directly connected to dehydration, one is diarrhea, because when you have diarrhea, you're going to end up with dehydration because of excess water leaving the body. But usually diarrhea is either trying to wash out something unfriendly that you've eaten or taken in, or if you've got a bad case of constipation, which is the signal is to clean that up with excessive dumping of water. Well, constipation is a side effect usually of poor digestion. Poor digestion is quite often caused in the beginning by not enough water. So until we put the water back into the system, you're not going to heal. I can give you many cases, but one of my favorite things to do is when people tell me that they're not sleeping good and they're just not feeling rested, I say drink more water, and then say, oh, no, my doctor says not to do that because I have to get up and go to the bathroom so many times. And then I say, well, how's that working for you? And they tell me, well, it's not. I say, well, let's think about this. This is probably a math problem more than a sleep problem. Let's add more parts, more water to your bladder so the parts of toxicity don't shake you and wake you in the middle of the night from 1 hour of sleep, maybe or 2 hours if you're lucky. And I ask them each time that they go to the bathroom, are you filling a quart jar or are you just maybe filling a shot glass? And they say, well, hardly a shot glass. I say, well, you've got nothing to lose. Let's try it. And sure enough, when they start to add more water to their life before bed and throughout the day, especially before bed, the parts per million of toxicity don't burn the bladder, so they don't have to wake up and do nothing. They can. Just had a guy recently said he gets up now once in the morning. He can get up about 5 o'clock in the morning, but before that he'd have to get up 5, 6 times a night. Well, it's impossible to regenerate the health of the body when you get woke up to use the restroom. because your body never gets into REM sleep, with the deep REM sleep. They say that when a person that hits 40 years old, the studies show that, and you're 40 and you become thirsty, you're 60 ounces short. The problem of our thirst indicators are even more weakened as we get beyond 40. So it's little wonder that we get to have all the wrinkling and all that from dehydration. But the other day I was talking with somebody that's a neighbor, and I'm trying to help them because they're very much enrolled in using their insurance, sometimes 4 or 5 doctor visits a week. And they want you to know that, well, I have RA, that's what that is. And not that they don't have arthritis, but what they have is acidosis. They have inflammation. And your body tissues, if you don't hydrate with enough water, it's like the body's not being cooled down, and sure enough, you're going to get inflammation, which is temperature rise, and the hydration amount can't neutralize the acid, and acid in the body is pain. Whenever you have a messenger telling you that there's pain somewhere, it's really trying to indicate that you need to alkalize. And to alkalize, you should have water that's alkaline. You should have vegetables that are alkaline, and you should find supplements that are alkaline in order to reverse that acidosis. There's too much acid in the body, and so they give it a title. The body knows how to cure itself of anything. In fact, nobody cures anything except the body does it for itself. But it takes the right influx of good, dense nutrition and the detoxing or cutting out of something toxic to the body to get rid of the acid. When I mentioned the soda pop that I was addicted to years ago, if you look at the pH scale of the human body, say alkalize, there's a book called Alkalize or Die. The pH of the blood is 7.3, and it varies a little bit, but if it varies very much at all, you're going to be very ill, and if it moves much beyond just a few points, you actually will die. And so to alkalize the system, part of it should come from the drinking water. But if you're doing anything acidic, you then have to find excessive alkaline to neutralize that, to balance that out. And some of the things that are very acid, if you look at most bottled water, it'll be acidic, and it's also full of leached with synthetic estrogen from the petroleum that built the plastic bottle it's coming in. But you've got to hydrate from somewhere, so if that's all that's available, that you do the least of the evils. But if you're going to start checking the pH of some of the things that we've been putting into our body, distilled water comes in at about 4.5. But battery acid, we don't put that in our body, I would hope. But I tested the pH meter that I have, and it's about 3.2. All of the soda pops were under 3, some were under 2, and even under 1. Now, that may not read like much to anybody, but if on a pH of 7, which would be safe for the body, a pH of 6 is in the acid that's 1,000 times more acidic than the body can handle. 5 is 10,000. 4 is 100,000. And so when you're getting down into the battery acid range, you're looking at 1,000,000 times too acidic for the body. And so what happens is when people do acid, things that are sugar are very acidic, medications are acidic. Most all your processed food, especially your meats, are acidic. And you can tell when someone has an acid lifestyle because the body will pull from the bones and put the calcium back into the bloodstream to get the pH balance to save the human's life. And the first sign of osteoporosity is not when you become 50 and they do a bone density check. Your first osteoporosis indication is your first cavity. And it isn't because sugar touched the teeth. It's because the body had to steal from the integrity of the bones, the teeth, to put that calcium into the system, make certain that the body didn't pass because of acidosis. Headaches, if you wake up in the morning with a headache, I'll guarantee you that the highest percentage reason would be because you did not drink enough water the day before, and especially before bed. Anytime you can count it, if you have, like I mentioned earlier, a heightened urgency to go to the restroom and you have to hurry up, or you hopefully somebody's not in the way or you're going to have trouble, that's from dehydration. In most cases, I seldom would think that there'd be an exception to that.
Wow.
The list goes on. I mentioned any dis-ease, I probably could show you part of the connection to dehydration. In fact, I would seriously like to see a study done on this, but I think nearly every stroke that happens, except for maybe an accident or an injury or trauma, but every stroke that happens, I believe, is dehydration. I've seen the blood when it's sticky and they call it rouleau, and 10 minutes or less after taking about 8 ounces of water, the blood is moving about and it's no longer clotting up and sticky. People don't think much about their water unless they're not having it. I've noticed, let me give you an example of how I've come to some of the opinion that I see from my lifestyle and the life of others teaching them. If you are sweating all day outside and you don't replenish your hydration, you'll stop back and think, I didn't have to take a pee all day. I didn't have to go to the restroom all day. The body is so good at telling how much water it's got that it won't even allow you to have a bladder. It'll actually steal the water back from the bladder to keep you cooled and sweat. And you'll be sweating your own urine. I think most everybody will recognize they've had some time in their life where they've done that. So the keen intelligence that God gave us how to even save ourselves if we don't have water by using our own urine to cool us down is pretty much proof in my world that the urination gives up for something more important, which is to be hydrated and recycle that urine until we finally do get some water. I believe most all your people with blood pressure issues will find that they can benefit particularly by upping the increase of their water intake. And when I get another opportunity to talk about the number 2 cause for disease, it'll come to light that the water that you're drinking has to be broke down so it can hydrate the cells. That some people will be drinking a gallon or a gallon and a half, even 2 gallons a day, and they're still all the time thirsty, especially if they're diabetic. So I'll be covering that probably another segment on the digestion.
I do have a question for you. You talk a lot about water and what kind of water we need. You talked about alkalizing our water. What are some good ways to do that, to alkalize our water?
I was kind of hoping you might bring that up. Whenever I bring up the subject of water, it seems like an open season on argument, but I will try to keep it simple. In my searching the planet for a place to set up a health resort to help people get well, I've traveled to different countries trying to find water that was alkaline, had mineral base, and did not have to be perverted by anything to be drank. So my first choice of any kind of water would be spring water or artesian water. In other words, water that comes out of the ground or from a source, a clean source like a spring, even a waterfall or something was running over a rock.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we touch water, with anything man touches, it wrecks the value, it brings the value down. And so the best that I could find in this country was where we live now. And it was the drinking water. And from the wells are very good here, but it's starting to be questionable because all the GMO push and for the Roundup Ready, there's now turning all this pasture land into corn for ethanol. And I say the GMO means God move over. And when that starts to get deeper into the water source, the wells here will be challenged. But my first choice is spring. My second choice is well water, if it hasn't been wrecked by pesticides, herbicides, and bacteria. But I'd even rather take that water and repair it rather than take on regular city tap water. But if I can get filtered city tap water, I will take that over if it's a good filtered system. If it alkalizes, that's a plus. If it is city water that's been alkalized by chlorine and you got a good filter, it'll still be alkaline water, so that'd be my next best choice. Dead water is something you can use if you know how to put back minerals. It's called reverse osmosis. Hungry water that will attach itself, it needs minerals so severely that it'll actually, some studies prove that it pulls minerals out of the body or from a nutritional supplement program. It would be distilled water. Distilled water is also very acidic, as well as hungry water looking for minerals to collect. They'll say, well, ours is spring water. Well, the truth of it, all water at one point was spring water, even if it went through 10 toilets or 7 toilets. Like in one Texas city, big city, they're so proud of their tap water that they say that from 30 minutes from the last toilet to the next tap, it's available for reuse. And the number one particulate is toilet paper fiber. But finding a good source of water and picking water that's healthy, I've searched the globe for it. It's getting harder and harder to find good drinking water.
Dr. Klebs, do you advocate these systems like the Berkey light system or any of the kind of systems that that actually manipulate the water? And like there's some out there that actually shoot a frequency through it. Do you advocate any of that stuff?
Structured water and alkalized water and all that. Here's a blanket statement that I have used in the past. Any kind of a water processor is better than doing nothing. I remember studying some great speakers. Norman Vincent Peale said that it's greater to shoot for the moon and miss it than to shoot at nothing and hit a toad on the road. It's better if you would buy a water filter, even a gravity feed, and use it than to do nothing. And the reason I say that is because when people have invested in their health, whether the processor was $50 or $6,000, they're going to drink more water. And they will feel a health increase, and they'll brag about their water purifier as being the best because now look what's happened to my body. I feel so good, and my pain has disappeared and all that kind of thing. It's because they took time where someone educated them to actually start drinking water that tasted better. Biggest problem I see inside of the water industry, especially the bottled water industry, they take city water and filter it to a small degree, and then they sell to you as good drinking water. Now, the problem with most of the soda pop industry, they take water that's not even filtered, some starting to filter it, but not even filtered, and they cover up all those carcinogenic compounds. Some say 20, some for as high as 23 different carcinogenic compounds in some city tap water. So if you just cover that up with high fructose corn syrup or aspartame so you don't taste the ugliness of the water, you really add an insult, injury on top of insult, or insult to injury. The better systems or health will cost more. You'll get what you pay for. If I was to design a water system, I would be certain it comes through a silver tube, because no bacteria of any kind that's harmful has ever been able to survive the presence of silver. That's why we used to have silverware and silver goblets, and colloidal silver is so valuable.
Wow.
I would make sure that it had ultraviolet with it. And I would also add a magnetic structure to it so that when it spun the water, the magnetic structure. But the main thing I would want them to do is make sure they don't take out the minerals, because we used to get our mineral source from our drinking water. And good water will have, it'll be called hard water. It'll be irritating because it can build up on the plumbing, or it might stain the sink if you got a drip. Or it might cause clothes to have a red tint. But that water is healthy. Before they started to soften water, we didn't have heart disease. It was an unknown thing in America. And I think it's partly because of them adding thick salt to the system. We'll talk more about the value of salt, because nobody hardly in America gets enough salt. They just get the wrong kind. But when it comes to filtration and structured water, I recommend that you try them, see if they help with your body. I personally just found it easier to pick up and move to where the water was good, and then I could bathe, shower, sauna, and all that without putting up with the chemicals of somebody's perverted water. Some people call it enhanced. I call it perverted if it's fluoridated and chemicalized.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, Dr. Klebs, I'm going to take a quick little 30-second pay the bill session, and as soon as that 30 seconds is up, I'll come back to you, and we'll start another line of thought.
Okay, thanks.
Do you remember the series of the 70s and 80s? You know, the Dukes of Hazzard, I Dream of Jeannie, Mork and Mindy, Hogan's Heroes, the list goes on and on and on. Of course you do. Why? Because they were family-friendly shows. What's the one place you can go on the internet to find them? www.retroshowesarebetter.com. Go by my Ace store and get yourself some popcorn and a movie and meet me there. Okay, this is the House of Hidalgo show. I am your show host, Rick Hidalgo, and today I am with Dr. Klebs. He's here in South Dakota, and we've been talking about water, talking about having good drinking water and how it benefits your health. Dr. Klebs shared with us how important it was to have alkalized water as opposed to acidic water, and we're going to continue this discussion. Dr. Klebs, do you keep some little litmus papers around with you? Is that how you find out how much how alkalized or acidic your water is?
I do have that, but that's for quick, easy testing. But I have a redox meter. It's redox. It reads the pH, but it also reads the H- available, hydrogen available. Back to the scale of pH. Most people don't even know what pH stands for, but if you ever get a handle on it, you start to understand pH determines if it's acid, it heals; if it's alkaline, it heals. But there's another component, which is the encapsulated energy of the sun, which would be hydrogen, which has a minus charge, which when people talk about free radicals, they're talking about plus charge. And the minus charge goes in to neutralize and balance the body's metabolism and its cell-to-cell communication. Everything that has to do with the human's body will have to do with plus and minus. And if you get too much plus charge, which would be anything from sugar to heavy meat to medications to even an acid lifestyle of living under stress will produce plus charge. And the origin of disease is actually oxidization. So I have a redox meter that I can put in anybody's nutritional supplement if we dissolve it in a known amount, or we want to find out if it has actual redox or reduction potential of free radicals, it'll show up. The water that I have coming from my well, not only is it alkaline, it's about a 7, almost the same as the blood, about 7.3, sometimes 7.5. But it has an H minus potential as if it was fresh squeezed carrot juice, organic, drank just after the squeezing. It has about an H minus of 70. And to better understand the value of hydrogen, if a person was to go fishing, say, in a lake in the summertime, and they pull out a fish with worms in it, you'll find that the pH of that lake has dipped into the acid side. In the springtime, or after the winter thaw, or after a rain, or if the water keeps moving, the pH will be very alkaline in the 7s, and those fish will be healthy. But as soon as something starts to go to the acid side, all types of parasite activity shows up. You'll notice that when, same thing with the summer, in the springtime, if you check a old tire or a pond or a puddle, it'll have a pH of 7. And if you look underneath a high-power microscope, it's boring. It's just water with a few specks. But let that dip into the 6s with stagnation of not moving, and all kinds of squiggly, it's almost worse than, like, God's got a sense of humor, and some of the ugly, squiggly things that water full of parasites. And so you can tell if the pH of your body has been hampered with simply by, do the mosquitoes hunt you down? Do the wood ticks bite you? Do the bed bugs bite you? If your body's running in an alkaline state, the parasites have no reason to stop at you because you're not a stagnant pond. Or the wood tick will crawl on you. But if they latch on and they stop and they find a place that's partially stagnant, then you're going to know that you've been visited by one of God's creations. It was not a mistake. The parasites are not a mistake of God. They are to help the weak back to the dust of the earth. I've paid attention my whole life because one of my siblings have been, every time we'd have a family reunion or some kind of Sunday school picnic or something, we had to watch out that he didn't eat any potato salad or anything that was baked or put together and had high bacteria counts. And he'd get food poisoning. And everybody else said, well, I had the same potato salad, and you rub your tummy and you feel fine. Well, he was the one that was also always swatting mosquitoes before anybody else hardly paid attention that they showed up. His pH was very acidic. Now, he's doing better now as he's gotten older, but he's learned how to alkalize, and so now he's not getting bit up by everything. But the pH is very critical. The parasite activity in the human will be hampered greatly when somebody's switching to an alkaline diet. And that starts with alkaline water.
Wow. That is just amazing. I mean, the things that you're spilling out for us here are things that I've never even thought of before. So I really appreciate that. I want to ask you this, and on that same line of thinking then, how is it that you can test your pH level in your body? Do you have a particular method that you like to use to test?
Well, I actually ask them about their parasite level. I ask them about their bowel movements. I ask them about, and all the messengers will be screaming at you. You don't even have to get excited about just doing some kind of a test in the morning, your morning urine, your morning saliva, and all that. That almost complicates for some people. Already you're trying to teach them they need to switch over to some alkaline, nutrient-dense food and what they drink. So I try to go straight to solution. And that would be ask them if they get bit by mosquitoes, and ask them about the activity of, is it full moon? Do you see a difference, mood change? Do you see skin changes? Your body starts to ache worse? Because you can tell if their parasite activity is taking over. Everybody has parasites, but do the parasites have you? Well, the way to tell is at full moon, if something is different, I know your body's acid. In fact, you'll probably have more pain, especially for those with plagued with the tapeworm, and it's called fibromyalgia, which is a big word for just everything hurts. If I find that my time and their time, they're only going to be able to take in so many words and sentences at a time. And so if I teach them how to do the test their pH, or do I teach them how to take something that cleans up the pH so that they no longer need to worry about it, I will go to the system that's quicker, because most of the time people that are ill have very poor attention span. They're usually broke or close to broke, or they don't have, it's hard to get very enthused about anything. And so you've got a few moments to make a difference, and then that's a little bit of time that you can share with someone, whether it's at a gas station, a street corner, or your church, or you've got to plant a seed that has a chance of catching. And so I don't get too fancy with testing equipment and testing this and all that, because the basic foundation is if you put in nutrition and take out the toxicity, the poisons, they're going to start to see enough benefit that they're going to listen to you about something else. Then you might want to teach them how to get their pH strips and make their morning urine, but I don't spend a lot of time with that.
Well, that's fantastic. I appreciate that advice, and on top of it, that correction too. That's very appreciative. I want to ask you this. I've noticed an explosion in the world concerning gout, and I've studied it a little bit because I have a little bit of a problem myself with that, and I know that that's very much related to an acidic environment. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, there's a thing that God put into motion. It's called gravity, and as the acid can't get out due to inactivity, due to the fact that it hurts to move, it's like a puppy chasing a tail. If you don't figure out how to stop that whirlwind of acidosis happening, it just gets uglier. And I've seen it so bad it actually came out the toes, and she had calves the size of watermelons, and she wouldn't give up her sacred cow, and it wasn't a good picture. The first thing anybody that suspects they've got gout is you cut out animal protein. Now, I don't mean eggs or fish, but I mean basically the animal proteins you can't handle, especially red meats, and worse yet would be pork. And of course, that goes along with most people are going to try to get you past your dis-ease if they're of a natural path. They'll tell you to cut out animal protein. Animal protein cannot be handled by a body that's spending its energy on trying to clean up acidosis from your other things that you're doing, which would be your pastries, your drugs, your pop, all that. And so it's not just red meat or pork, but to get a handle on it, you almost have to get them to stop that in its tracks until they get healthier. And usually we win. Now, we put people on a 7-day cleanse. It's been around since 1946, comes from Kansas City. There's a cleanse that's been reversing some of the worst cases you could imagine of gout. I've got to see testimonials and pictures, and where the legs are just oozing. It's gotten so bad and just swollen up like that one lady I told you about. And after a series of cleanses, you do one 7-day cleanse, 7 to 10 days, and we say 7. If you would do one every season, for 12 seasons, you'd be so clean and so healthy that sometimes people's brown eyes go back to blue.
Really?
Yeah. not everybody's eyes are blue, they're brown, but there's some that if you look at the outer ridges, you'll see blue, and if you get them to do some colon cleanses, they get to have blue eyes sometimes for the first time in their life.
That's very interesting. Now, Dr. Klebs, I had herbalist on my show about a week ago, and she was telling us that she does a lot of muscle testing to try to figure out what's going on in someone's body. Is that something that you do? You advocate?
I was fortunate to train under a doctor that was doing it back in the 1980s, and he had taken and found that as far back as Dr. Vega in the late 40s had discovered that the body could answer questions simply by different methods. So, yes, in fact, almost everybody that I communicate with in the natural health world that is in the profession, they're using some form of kinesiology or muscle testing. It can be done even by computers. Remember what's called EDS, epidermal screening. It can be skewed. The testing, whether it's computer or human, they have to be working without ego. Ego stands for edging God out.
Yeah.
Muscle testing to be clean, or kinesiology, you have to keep a clean spirit and clean heart, or it'll backfire on you, and you'll get very frustrated, and it won't work well at all. It doesn't work to win the lottery, I can tell you that.
Yeah. I haven't even tried to win the lottery because I just know myself. But so that's really fascinating. I just wonder, you mentioned not eating pork when you're dealing with something like gout. Now I admit that gout is one of my issues, and even as we speak right now, my right foot is probably 50% bigger than my left because of this particular dis-ease. And I've done a lot of research, and most of the research I found talked about red meat, but it didn't really go into other sources of animal protein. So I appreciate that advice. I hadn't even considered it.
Well, all your meats are quite acidic, especially pork and red meat. Even poultry today is no longer considered poultry because of the way it's grown. But you've got to find something that's alkaline, and the high amount of energy that it takes to break down meats, it's a losing battle. When you're already behind and you have a messenger screaming at you, like if you bump your foot into something, you almost would have a coronary, it hurts so bad. It's getting your attention, and that's what pain is for. It's God's program to make sure that you pay attention to the messenger. You don't kill the messenger just because they show up. You listen to what they're trying to tell you, and I can tell you that you've had acidosis for a good long time in order for it to show up as gout.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's no question about that. Go ahead.
People on a given day don't find anything that's actually safe for the healing of their body, at least not in their food source.
Right. So yeah, I've learned something tonight, and I appreciate that. I think I will stop the animal proteins immediately. It's not like I'm missing much anyway.
Yeah, but so you don't throw everything out with what I said. Don't throw the baby out with the bath, so to speak. When you do fertile chicken eggs, fertile, free range, no GMO being put to that chicken, that is some of the best medicine. If you want, I don't like the word medicine means drug, but Western medicine got us all confused at some point. But fertile chicken eggs, 48% of the amino acids of a chicken egg is already in the system 20 minutes. And that's the kind of food that the body needs to run on, whereas it takes pork 72 hours to be fully digested in most Americans. And it takes 36 hours for red meat, 19 for poultry, and 6 for fish. So fish and eggs, they can be digested quite well, but the enzymes are cooked out of meats, and most people don't eat the meat raw. So it's so acidic by the time you get it that you're just adding injury to your already acid ankle.
Right. So you've discussed the water. Was there another was there another significant source of disease that you wanted to speak about tonight, or did you want to save that for another show?
I'll just let the cat out of the bag, and then I'd like to. Until the last few years, this was my number one cause for disease, and now I realize that I really have to address the water first, because if I would teach them formula number one, and not get them to drink water, we still didn't win. But the number two disease mechanism is triggered because we don't have good digestion, poor digestion, and some people are actually born without digestion. They start out with life as a colicky baby. And how much time do we have? Because I could go into that.
You have probably 10 minutes left on the show, so you can maybe go into it as much as you want to.
Okay. Well, and we can finish up or revisit it, because I'm assuming that some of the listeners are like kindergartners, if not, they might have tripped across your show and have just been diagnosed with something, or curiosities to finally get into them. But this is the foundation. In 1968, I was a junior in high school, and I noticed that some of the classmates were missing school, the ladies, and then I found out because I had a sister that they're having cramping and heavy flow and all that. So I started to search herb books my dad had, and I found some herbs at a pharmacist in a nearby town. And so if I could get them these herbs, and the parents would give these to their daughters, the parents thought it was great, and I noticed that the 2 or 3 days missing of these girls was no longer happening. So that's when I got my start, because of something a pharmacist taught me in 1968. I was in there getting some herbs for the classmates, and he held up a little pill, and he was just toying with me because he knew who my dad was. And he said, if America ever finds out about this little pill, there'll be very few hospitals needed. And I said, well, what is it? And he says, you can't afford it. And I said, well, why'd you tell me? He said, well, if you're on this side of the desk, it's $3 a pill. But over there, you can buy a whole bottle of it for $5. And so I was curious, and he told me how to use it. And the world is forever indebted to this guy, because he knew clear back in the 60s that like he said, if America ever finds out there'd be very few hospitals needed, well, as you well can attest to, that they've kept this so secret that the hospitals can't build fast enough, and you can't get enough people to go to college to become more DERs and RNs and that type of a thing. So, and it's what it is, and you can still get it today, but most health food stores have no clue what it's for. Doctors know what it's for, but they can't tell you. They'd be in trouble if they did, because it would, like that pharmacist told me.
Sure, they'd be violating their oath, right?
Yeah. So what it was is betaine